October 17, 2024. It was a quiet Thursday night at Evergreen Towers, a 12-story suburban apartment building located on the outskirts of the city. The building housed 84 units, mostly middle-class families, young professionals, and a few retired couples. By 2 a.m., the entire complex usually fell into deep silence. Hallway lights were dimmed to energy-saving mode. The only sounds were the low hum of the elevator motors and the occasional distant sound of a refrigerator. In the ground floor security monitoring room, Marcus Hale sat behind a wall of screens. Marcus was 51 years old, tall and broad-shouldered, with short salt and pepper hair and a clean-shaven face that showed years of night shifts. He wore the standard dark navy security uniform with the Evergreen Towers logo on the chest, black tactical belt, and his trusted surveillance tablet placed on the desk next to an industrial flashlight. Marcus had been working the night shift at Evergreen Towers for almost 9 years. He knew every corner of the building, every resident's routine, and every small sound the building made after midnight. At 3:32 a.m., he was reviewing the previous hour's logs when several motion sensors on the 7th floor suddenly triggered at once. Red indicators flashed across his main monitor. Marcus frowned and quickly switched the live feed to the 7th floor hallway cameras. What he saw made him sit up straight. A tall man had appeared in the corridor. He was roughly 6 feet 4 inches tall, extremely thin, wearing a perfectly fitted black suit, white dress shirt, and black tie. His skin looked unnaturally pale under the hallway lighting, almost gray. His short dark hair was combed neatly back. His posture was straight and formal. The man walked slowly down the center of the hallway with calm, deliberate steps. He didn't look around. He didn't check any doors. He simply moved forward as if he knew exactly where he was going. At exactly 3:33 a.m., he stopped in front of apartment 712. He stood perfectly still for a moment. Then he raised his right hand and knocked. 3 slow, heavy knocks. The sound was loud and clear through the hallway microphones. He waited exactly 10 seconds. No one answered. No light turned on inside the apartment. No sound came from within. He knocked 3 more times, same rhythm, same force. Still no response. Without any change in his expression, the man turned and continued walking down the hallway. He stopped at apartment 714 and repeated the exact same sequence: 3 knocks, 10 seconds of silence, 3 more knocks. Marcus watched in silence, his coffee forgotten. He immediately checked the building's access logs. No one had entered through the main lobby, the parking garage, or any stairwell in the last 2 hours. The elevator had not moved since 1:47 a.m. There was zero record of this man entering the building. Yet here he was, standing on the 7th floor as if he had simply appeared out of thin air. Over the next 35 minutes, the tall man in the black suit continued his route through the building. He visited the 9th floor. He visited the 11th floor. On each floor, he stopped at 4 different apartments. Always the same pattern: 3 slow knocks, exactly 10 seconds of waiting, then 3 more knocks. He never tried the handle. He never spoke. His face remained calm and polite, but his eyes looked completely empty. Not a single resident opened their door that night. Not a single light turned on. At 4:08 a.m., the man suddenly disappeared from the cameras on the 11th floor. One moment he was walking toward the end of the hallway, the next moment he was simply gone. No elevator. No stairwell. No trace. Marcus rewound the footage 4 times. He zoomed in on the man's face, his suit, his hands. Everything looked too perfect. Too still. He logged the incident as unknown male individual, possible trespasser, and noted the exact time the knocking began, 3:33 a.m. What Marcus didn't realize at that moment was that this was not a random event. The very next night, at exactly 3:33 a.m., the man in the black suit returned. And he would continue to return. Every single night. By 4:15 a.m. on that first night, Marcus Hale was no longer relaxed. He had rewound the footage at least 6 times. He zoomed in on every angle. He checked the timestamp repeatedly. The tall man in the black suit had appeared on the 7th floor at 3:32 and 47 seconds a.m. without using any entrance, elevator, or stairwell. There was simply no record of him entering the building. Marcus decided to call his backup for the night, Javier Ruiz, the 44-year-old maintenance technician who was on duty in the building. Javier arrived at the monitoring room within 8 minutes. He was lean, athletic, with short black hair and a neatly trimmed goatee, wearing the standard dark gray maintenance jumpsuit with reflective stripes and carrying his diagnostic tablet. Together, they reviewed the footage frame by frame. They checked every camera in the building, lobby, parking garage, all stairwells, rooftop access, and service entrances. Nothing. The man had not been recorded entering or leaving the building. It was as if he had materialized directly on the 7th floor hallway. They then pulled the access logs for the entire night. No unauthorized key cards. No visitor passes. No maintenance requests. The building's AI security system insisted that no unknown individuals had entered after 11 p.m. At 4:37 a.m., they decided to check the physical hallways themselves. Marcus took his industrial flashlight and tablet. Javier carried his master keys and diagnostic tools. They rode the elevator up to the 7th floor in complete silence. When the doors opened, the hallway was empty and quiet. The air felt strangely colder than usual. They walked the entire length of the corridor where the man had been seen. They checked every door he had knocked on, 712, 714, 718, and 721. All doors were properly locked. No signs of forced entry. No lights were on inside any of the apartments. They repeated the same check on the 9th and 11th floors. Same result. Nothing disturbed. Back in the monitoring room, they began digging deeper. They pulled footage from the previous 7 nights. To their shock, the same tall man in the black suit had appeared every single night at exactly 3:33 a.m. He followed the exact same routine, starting on different floors each night, knocking 3 times on 4 different doors per floor, waiting exactly 10 seconds between sets of knocks, then disappearing without a trace. On some nights he visited the 4th floor. On others the 8th or 10th. Always 4 apartments per floor. Always the same calm, polite knocking pattern. No resident had ever opened the door. No one had reported anything unusual. Marcus and Javier then started cross-referencing resident records. They discovered something even more disturbing. 3 of the apartments the man had knocked on in the past week had something in common: each had lost a family member in the last 18 months. One had lost an elderly father. Another had lost a young daughter in a car accident. The third had lost a husband to sudden illness. They decided to pull the building's old incident reports. In 2022, a tall man in a black suit had been reported by 2 residents on the 6th floor. They described him knocking on doors late at night. The complaints were logged but never followed up because the man was never caught on camera at that time. By 5:20 a.m., the activity escalated on the live feed. The tall man appeared again on the 12th floor, the top floor. This time he stopped in front of apartment 1203, the apartment of an elderly widow named Mrs. Eleanor Park, whose husband had passed away exactly 1 year ago on October 17th. He knocked 3 times. 10 seconds. 3 more knocks. Then, for the first time, something different happened. The man slowly turned his head and looked directly up at the security camera mounted at the end of the hallway. His face filled the frame. His eyes were completely black, no whites, no pupils, just solid black. He stared straight into the camera for almost 8 full seconds. Then he spoke, his voice calm, polite, and ice-cold, clearly picked up by the hallway microphone. "I will keep coming back, until someone finally opens the door." The moment the words left his mouth, he simply vanished from the frame. Marcus and Javier sat in stunned silence. The man had never spoken before. And for the first time, he had looked directly at them. The sealed pattern had broken. Something had changed. At 5:41 a.m., the atmosphere in the monitoring room had become heavy with dread. Marcus Hale and Javier Ruiz sat staring at the frozen frame of the tall man in the black suit, looking directly into the camera with completely black eyes. His final words, "I will keep coming back, until someone finally opens the door," were still echoing in their minds. They immediately reviewed the footage again in slow motion. The man had not used any exit. He had not walked away. He had simply vanished the moment he finished speaking. The hallway cameras on the 12th floor showed an empty corridor seconds later. Marcus decided they could no longer observe from the monitoring room alone. They needed to check the 12th floor physically. Both men took the elevator up. Marcus gripped his industrial flashlight tightly. Javier kept his hand near his tool belt. When the elevator doors opened on the 12th floor, the hallway felt noticeably colder than the rest of the building. Their breath was visible in the air. They walked slowly down the corridor toward apartment 1203, the apartment of Mrs. Eleanor Park, the elderly widow whose husband had died exactly 1 year earlier on October 17th. The hallway was dead silent. They stopped in front of apartment 1203. The door looked completely normal. No scratches. No marks. Marcus knocked loudly 3 times, not to mimic the man, but to check if anyone was awake. There was no answer. Javier checked the electronic lock log on his tablet. The door had not been opened since 7:45 p.m. the previous evening. As they stood there, every hallway light on the 12th floor suddenly flickered and then turned off completely for 12 long seconds, plunging them into darkness. When the emergency lights came back on, something had changed. On the wall directly opposite apartment 1203, written in what looked like condensation, were the words, "Open the door." The handwriting was neat, formal, and unnaturally perfect. Marcus and Javier stared at the writing in silence. The temperature in the hallway had dropped sharply. Their flashlights revealed faint frost forming on the metal handrails. They decided to wake the building manager, Mr. Richard Langford. He arrived at 6:10 a.m., visibly irritated at first, but his expression changed the moment he saw the footage. They immediately reviewed the footage again in slow motion. The man had not used any exit. He had not walked away. He had simply vanished the moment he finished speaking. The hallway cameras on the 12th floor showed an empty corridor seconds later. Marcus decided they could no longer observe from the monitoring room alone. They needed to check the 12th floor physically. Both men took the elevator up. Marcus gripped his industrial flashlight tightly. Javier kept his hand near his tool belt. When the elevator doors opened on the 12th floor, the hallway felt noticeably colder than the rest of the building. Their breath was visible in the air. They walked slowly down the corridor toward apartment 1203, the apartment of Mrs. Eleanor Park, the elderly widow whose husband had died exactly 1 year earlier on October 17th. The hallway was dead silent. They stopped in front of apartment 1203. The door looked completely normal. No scratches. No marks. Marcus knocked loudly 3 times, not to mimic the man, but to check if anyone was awake. There was no answer. Javier checked the electronic lock log on his tablet. The door had not been opened since 7:45 p.m. the previous evening. As they stood there, every hallway light on the 12th floor suddenly flickered and then turned off completely for 12 long seconds, plunging them into darkness. When the emergency lights came back on, something had changed. On the wall directly opposite apartment 1203, written in what looked like condensation, were the words, "Open the door." The handwriting was neat, formal, and unnaturally perfect. Marcus and Javier stared at the writing in silence. The